Hello students, welcome back to my class. Today I'll be talking about another important subject from Macbeth, that is the imageries or images in Macbeth. Okay, so Macbeth is a play written by William Shakespeare, and this particular play is from BA English Honors Part 2 and Paper 3. Okay, so earlier I have dealt several aspects from Macbeth. I have talked about various important scenes like Potter scenes, banquet scenes, sleepwalking scenes. Then I have talked about Lady Macbeth, I have talked about witches, and today, as a part of that series, I will be talking about another important aspect, which is the images in Macbeth. Okay, so this is also very important for your examination purpose. So please follow the lecture carefully. Okay, so what is an image or imagery? Imagery is something presents, which is presented by particular author, and it with the help of various vivid images like visual images, like auditory images, the author tries to establish some kind of phenomenon. And if you follow Macbeth throughout the play, you will see there are several instances of the usage of imagery by Shakespeare. So, in the course of my lecture, I'll be trying to find out all those imageries, all those important imageries, which is very much essential, and with proper quotations, I'll be trying to explain those images and how those are presented in Macbeth. Okay, so a small tip for you, those who want to get good marks in your answers, you should quote from the text wherever it is possible. So you have to memorize certain quotes, certain important soliloquies from Macbeth, so that you can establish your views while writing the answer. Okay, then let us move to the topic, today's topic, images in Macbeth. So, according to one famous critic, Caroline Spurgeon, the imagery in Macbeth appears to me to be more rich and varied, more highly imaginative, more unapproachable by any other writer. So, images, similes, and metaphors are scattered all over the play in rich profusions. The images contribute to the intricacy and complexity of its texture, and increase its expressive range. So, images enriches the texture and expressive range. Many of the images are recurrent and have acquired a some kind of symbolic significance. So this is very important. Most of the images carry some kind of symbolic significance. So their study is essential for an understanding of the meaning of the play. So Shakespeare uses imageries as a vehicle for sublime poetry, you can say. Okay, so let us move to our first images. So one of the principal images of the play, if you read the play closely, you could see that one of the most principal images of the play is that of a man in ill-fitting garments. Ill-fitting garments means the garments which is not supposed to be meant for that particular person. So throughout the play, we can see this kind of imagery of ill-fitting garments. Okay, so it is so abundant in the play that it gradually becomes a theme image. For example, at the early stage of the play, Ross there was a person called Ross, a nobleman, who hails Macbeth as most worthy Thane of Cawdor. Okay. So, to which Macbeth responds for the first time in terms of images of dress. Like, the Thane of Cawdor leaves, why do you dress me in borrowed robes? So, it is something, the imagery is something which is described in terms of dress, as if the title of Thane of Cawdor is not suitable for Macbeth. And he said, why do you dress me in borrowed robes? And soon after it, there is Macbeth's friend and colleague Banquo, who murmurs in wonder in terms of same images of garment. So Banquo says, now honors come upon him like our strange garments. So here also we can see the cloth imagery, the ill-fitted cloth imagery is presented here. We also find such images while there is one another character, Angus, who sums up the essence of what all have been thinking ever since Macbeth's accession to power. Like Angus said, he feels his title hang loose about him like a giant's robe. Again, we are talking about dress, the robe. So the image brings the eternal contrast in Macbeth into focus. Macbeth tries to be what he is not and becomes what he is not cut out for. Here lies the intensity of the great tragedy of the moral damnation. Okay, so this particular image of ill-fitting garment is very much prominent throughout the play, and it had a great impact on the progress of the plot. Okay, so let us move to the next images. So yeah, so the next image which I am going to talk about is the images of echoing sound. So throughout the play we can see that a series of recurrent images is concerned. The concerned images are the images concerned with echoing sound. So in this particular play you can see Macbeth is fully conscious as to how impossible it is to round up the consequences of the regicide, the killing of Duncan. Okay, so his speech provides the magnificent images of angels pleading trumpet. So that's a kind of sound, angels pleading trumpet. And according to Macbeth, they shall blow up the horrid deed in every eye. Okay, so similarly, images of this is another images of sound. His this has been this particular image is taken by Macduff when he describes Macbeth's reign of terror. When Macduff says, "Each new morn, new widows howl, new orphans cry." So these are all sound images, as if the mourning of the widows or orphans are actually crying. So these are all the images which we can actually listen. Okay, and this is very much prominent throughout the play. There is another one which I need to mention here is the sound image, which has been presented by Ross, another important another minor character in the play, when he is trying to break the terrible news of Macbeth's latest murder to Macduff's, the destruction of his own wife and children. So Ross was actually telling about how Macbeth has mercilessly killed Macduff's wife and children. So he talks about the images, the sound images. I have words that would be howled out in the distant air. So as if the ghastly news of killing of Macduff's wife and children can be audible to everyone, just like it howled out in the distant air. So the contrast between good and evil is another images which is throughout present in Macbeth. So this contrast which I was talking about between good and evil is one of the chief motifs of the play, and it has been brought out in variety of ways. The imagery of light and darkness are effectively brought out uh, some kind of variety in this contrast. So it is seen that the most of the scenes in Macbeth, most of the important scenes in Macbeth are set in darkness, which is very important from the perspective of this particular play. Most of the scenes are set in darkness. For example, the murder of Duncan, the regicide scene, which is done off stage, of course, but the build up of the murder of Duncan, the murder of the king, was in total darkness, and Lady Macbeth was actually actually invoking the dark spirit to cover everything so that the crime can be committed. Okay. Then the murder of Banco, it was also happened off stage, but the things happened in darkness, as we come to know about from the confession of the murderer. Then the sleepwalking scene. Sleepwalking scene is very important, and I have made one video on sleepwalking scene where Lady Macbeth talks about all the guilt. She was actually walking in her sleep, and she talks about all her guilt-ridden conscience. So those who want to know about the sleepwalking scene, you can watch my earlier video, which is available in the playlist of English literature. Okay. Then this images of darkness conveys the pre-existence of evil both inside and outside of human mind. So we can see that before the regicide, Macbeth actually prays to the star to hide their faces, and as I already mentioned, Lady Macbeth invokes to the night to conceal their crime. She says, "Come, thick night, and pall thee in the darnest smoke of hell." So, Macbeth also invokes night to conceal the murder of Banco later, and he says, "Come, sealing night." So, with these imageries, good things of the day are always contrasted with the night's black agent. So there is a contrast between darkness and light, and there are several imageries used to establish that kind of contrast throughout the play. Okay, so these images of good and evil are throughout present in the play. Yeah. So there is another very important images, another type of images which has been described in the play in full swing, is the image of disease. So this is a very recurrent image which runs throughout the play, and in the play it is told the scene is being a disease of, and Scotland being a kind of sick country. Scotland a sick country. Okay. So throughout the play, it has been told that Scotland is a sick country, and as if everyone is suffering from some kind of unknown disease. Then there we have various scenes where we have doctors. So in one of the scenes, Macbeth asks the doctor to find out the Scotland's disease and to cure it. Then we have various scenes where the images of medicine, which cures both the body and mind, in this particular scene occurs towards the end of the play, indicating the infected world of Macbeth, the dark world of Macbeth, which has been infected throughout the play. Okay, So, as if Macbeth is suffering from some kind of disease, and these images of disease and sufferings, and of course we have our sleepwalking scene where we can see there was a doctor and a gentlewoman who are discussing about the disease, the illness of Lady Macbeth, who actually walks in her sleep and who actually speaks in her sleep, and through her speech all the guilt reason, all the guilts which were hidden inside her mind was coming out, and through her guilt she confesses about the murder of Duncan, she confesses about the murder of Banquo and Macduff's wife and all. So there is some kind of mental disease. The prominent image of mental disease has been presented throughout the play. So this is also very important. Then, of course, since Macbeth is some kind of revenge tragedy in terms of that Macduff and MacDonald, they actually takes the revenge by killing Macbeth and take the revenge of King Duncan's death, the revenge of the regicide. So there are lots and lots of bloodshed. So since Macbeth is a grim tragedy of blood and violence, aggression and murderousness, here the ceremony of innocence is drowned in the pool of blood. So one can hardly miss Shakespeare's adept use of the imagery of a green sleeve slowly becoming sanguine. So there was a speech by Macbeth where he says that the multitudinous sea, the green sea turns into red with Duncan's blood, and there was another speech by Lady Macbeth when she says, "Who would have thought that the old man had so much of blood in him?" So he was referring after the discovery scene of Duncan when people actually found Duncan is lying on a pool of blood. So there also we have the images of the bloodshed. Okay. So then we have another scene when in the banquet scene we can see Banquo's ghost shake his gory locks at Macbeth, who is convinced that blood will have blood. And at the end of the banquet scene, Macbeth confesses that he stepped so far in the bloody pool that he cannot return. So throughout the images we have that kind of blood imageries. So we have referred the sleepwalking scene again and again. In the sleepwalking scene, in her somnambulism, Lady Macbeth was seen trying to rub off her hand. Okay, she was trying to remove the damp spot of blood from her hand, which is another example of blood imagery. And according to him, according to her, all the perfumes of Arabia may not sweeten thy little hand. So her hand is so soaked in blood, invisible blood of King Duncan, that all the perfumes of Arabia will not dampen the foul smell of the blood of Duncan. Okay, so this is another instance of the blood imagery in Macbeth. Okay, so apart from that, we have the images of animals, and it is also very much dominant throughout the play. In the play, we can see the images of animals in Macbeth, and all the animals, incidentally, are predators. Okay, so it adds some kind of the feeling of evil. So we have come across the Hyrcaean tiger, then we have rhinoceros, then we have bear, then vulture. We have talked about venomous serpents, and all these predatory animals images are present throughout the play. So the abnormality in the animal world mentioned in Macbeth reinforces that the aura of mystery, and it always emphasizes the presence of evil in our world. So the presence of evil is being established through the images of this kind of predatory animals. Okay, so yeah, let us move to our next images. So here we can see the images of babies, which has been frequently used throughout the play. Now, where we can find the images of babies? Then, first and foremost, the images of the breastfeeding babies appears in the Lady Macbeth's invocation of the evil spirit to take possession of her. And actually, she invokes the evil spirit by saying, "Come to my women's breast and take my milk for girl." Okay, so what is an invocation? You murdering mistress. What is an invocation? Lady Macbeth invokes the evil spirit. She actually prays to the evil spirit that come to my woman's breast and take my milk for girl, you mothering mistress. So here, Lady Macbeth actually prays in front of the dark spirit, and through this prayer we can see there is an images of the baby. We can also find such images when Macbeth was debating whether to do the regicide or not, when he says, "Pity like a newborn babe." Here also we can see the images of the babies are there. Then we have that apparition scene when we can see the image of a newborn babe which comes in front of us through the form of apparition. So apparition means it's a kind of vision, it's a kind of ghostly image of, like, the apparition actually stands for Macduff, the apparition of the baby, whose pleading has been ignored by Macbeth for the inevitable consequences. So, in another way, Macduff can be found out as the baby who was untimely ripped off from his mother's womb, and Macduff was the person who actually justifies the witches' prophecies. The witches actually prophesied to Macbeth that no man born out of women's womb can kill you. So, what they are trying to say is that any natural born baby, any natural born man cannot, no natural born man can kill Macbeth. But in the case of Macduff, he was a Caesarean baby, he was not natural born, and he was untimely ripped off from his mother's womb. So, in that way, Macduff actually justifies, and his apparitions, the apparition of the baby, is representative of Macduff, who was untimely ripped off from his mother's womb. Okay. So apart from this, this is not inclusive. This is a we can find out you can find out many such images, but due to the constraint of time, due to the preparation, when you will be preparing your answer, you could have seen that you will be getting some more images. So it's very impossible to cover everything in the short span of your answer. So there are other group of images as well. So you can references must be made to other group of images, like those related to equivocation. Okay, so I have talked about the concept of equivocation in my earlier lecture. The You can follow the video of my Potter's in lecture where I have talked about the theme of equivocation. So if you read the scene, or if you follow my video, you could have seen that the theme of equivocation runs throughout the play, and it's a contrast between desire and performance. As for example, Macbeth's own equivocation after the murder of Duncan, that had I but died an hour before this change. So this is something which is very important. And the gap between desire and performances mentioned by the potter comes over and over again by Macbeth and his wife Lady Macbeth. So we must not, to conclude my talk, it can be said that we must not imagine, of course, that Macbeth is merely an elaborate pattern of imagery. Macbeth is actually a play in which the images take a crucial role in the development of the plot. The images contributes greatly to the development of the tragic action and brings out the poetic as well as the dramatic craftsmanship of Shakespeare. Okay, so this is, as I have already said, this does not, this particular lecture does not include all the images. If you want to add something or if you want to subtract something, you are you are free to do that. But these are all the principal images that can be found in the particular play. So if you have any question, you can write it at the comment section of the video. Thank you.